Hello and welcome back. And today we're talking about the 2025 driver lineups. So it's quite simple. I'm going to go through the 10 teams and decipher which two drivers will be driving for each team in the 2025 season. I'm going to do this in order of, I guess, least weird to most weird predictions. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. We are going to start pretty obviously, this is the most obvious one by far, at the Scuderia Ferrari. Hamilton and Leclerc will be the two drivers. That is factual, there's no debate about it. Hamilton has signed a pre-contract for 2025, and Leclerc has recently extended on a long-term deal. Both drivers are guaranteed to drive for the team in 2025. That was a very simple one to start off with. Okay, then moving swiftly on to McLaren now. One where I'm predicting zero change from the 2024 season. Well, the majority of the grid are scrapping of who's going to be driving with their team next season. There's so many contracts up. McLaren have two drivers committed to long-term contracts, and I don't expect either will be going anywhere. Of course, there's always the chance of Red Bull or a Mercedes coming in for the drivers, but I think both currently are committed to the papaya and will stay with McLaren for 2025. Moving on now to Alpine, alongside McLaren, believe they'll have the exact same driver lineup in 2025. There's obviously been some disagreements between the two drivers, and 2024 is looking like it's going to be a really tough year for Alpine. But I do think the two Frenchmen will stick through it, perhaps more so due to the fact I expect no major interest outside for the pair. Unless, I guess, Mercedes bring Ocon back or Red Bull consider Gasly for a Racing Bull seat. I don't really think him returning to that team would make much sense anyway. So ultimately, I think the two will just stick out at Alpine in search for improvements from the car in the next few years. I think probably next season there will be some improvements. And certainly over the next few years, it's going to get a lot better for Alpine, hopefully. Otherwise, that team's just going to keep going backwards. Now, the first one with a bit of change, we're at Haas. Nothing particularly crazy though, which is why I've gone least to most. I ultimately think Haas have to begin to look to the future, and I think Ferrari do as well. And I strongly believe Ferrari will long-term replace Hamilton with a young Ferrari junior driver, and Haas is the perfect place to develop one. Obviously, it is their main development team. Both Hulk and K-Mag have contracts up at the end of the year, and I think Magnussen is going to be let go. I do think Nico will have his contract renewed. We'll have Nico Hülkenberg in the team, and alongside him will be Ferrari junior and current Formula 2 driver Ollie Behrman. I think Nico would be really there to guide Behrman through his rookie years and his development to eventually be a Ferrari driver alongside Charles Leclerc in the post-Hamilton era at Ferrari. Moving on now to another really interesting team. We're going over to Williams. I believe Albon will still race there in 2025. I don't think Mercedes or Red Bull will come calling for him. And to be honest, I don't think Alex will mind that too much. I think he'll take one or two more seasons with Williams to further his experience and development and make him truly one of the best on the grid before he takes a big step up to a big team. Obviously, he had the opportunity at Red Bull before. It didn't go to plan. I think his next one has to for him. So I think he'd be alright with a couple more years waiting for it. And perhaps bringing a driver into the team with even more experience next to him would make a bit of sense. And that is what I'm saying. I think they're not going to go for a young driver like the Frederick Vestes we're looking at. I think Valtteri Bottas is going to come back to Williams for the 2025 season next to Alex Albon. Because I still think Valtteri is enjoying his race and will want to stay in Formula 1. Unfortunately for him, I think Stake might look to move one of him or Zhou on. Maybe both. But I think Williams might even, at least short-term, look to him as an option. And to be honest, it might be a step forward from Stake. Maybe when Audi come in, they'll take a step forward. But I think Williams is a better team than Stake right now. And it would allow him to get closer to the points more regularly. And I think Bottas would enjoy the move overall. Moving on to Aston Martin now, and maybe this is really my most outlandish one, because I am predicting change. And that's not Fernando Alonso leaving. I think Lawrence Stroll is finally going to give up on his son's ability to compete in Formula 1, and instead decide to bring in some more experience, a proven driver, and a simply faster driver in next to Fernando to make the team more competitive. And for that reason, I think Aston Martin will bring Sergio Perez to the team in 2025. I think Red Bull will let Perez go, and I think Perez will not find it easy to find a new seat. But when the Aston seat comes open, Stroll's kicked off to some other sport, he'll probably end up in another Formula for Aston Martin. He will take that opportunity in a heartbeat, I think, mainly because it will allow him to continue in the grid, but also in a fast team. And it would be sad to see Checo leave the sport after so many years, but I don't think he would. I think he would find an opportunity somewhere, even if it meant going down to Haas. I think he'd be happy to just be in the sport. Now, let's move over to Stake. I think this is an interesting one, because as I said, I think one of Bottas or Zhou will be let go, and I think Bottas will be the one let go. So I think Zhou will stay, and alongside him will be junior driver Théo Pourchaire, who I think absolutely deserves a chance in Formula 1 for the 2025 season. And I think with Audi entering in the place of Stake in 2026, whether Zhou stays then or not is a different story, but I expect that Pourchaire would be key for that team in the Audi era. And now moving into Red Bull, the Racing Bulls, not Red Bull, moving into Racing Bulls, I've gone with a bit of an interesting take, because I don't think Ricciardo's going to get that Red Bull seat, you know. On the other hand, I think he will destroy Yuki Tsunoda. I think it's going to be a crucial year for both of those two. And I think the better performing driver will be in with a shot of the Red Bull seat. But if neither's going to get that seat, then I think the worst performing driver will be let go for Liam Lawson. And for that reason, I expect in 2025, the two Racing Bull drivers will be Liam Lawson and Daniel Ricciardo. Obviously, Liam was promised the seat for 2025. Most expect him to take Daniel's seat and Daniel move to Red Bull, but I think otherwise. I'm saying Yuki's going to be let go because he's not going to be close enough to Ricciardo, and Ricciardo's not going to quite be getting that Red Bull seat. Now, I think it's wise to move on to Red Bull, having just spoken about their junior team. I think Max Verstappen is pretty much guaranteed to race for Red Bull in 2025. I planned this before all these rumours came out that Verstappen might be moving to Mercedes. I don't buy into those rumours too much. I don't think it's going to happen. But you never know. You do never know. Wild things happen in this sport. I didn't think Hamilton was actually going to go Ferrari, but he has. And with that seat open, maybe Verstappen will be looking for it. But I don't think Verstappen's going to be open to that move. So I don't think it's a real possibility for Mercedes. In terms of Red Bull, I think Max will be staying there, and I think Red Bull want the best possible driver next to him. And as I said, I've already said Checo's going to go to Aston Martin. I don't think he's going to be up to the standard of anywhere near Max Verstappen. Well, I don't think any driver would be that close to him. But I just don't think the levels are going to be quite there for Checo Perez, and I think he will be gone. I also think the two most likely candidates beyond that have been Ricciardo and Albon. And I think neither of those two is going to do well enough to get the seat, ultimately. On the other hand, I expect another driver to absolutely smash this season and beat his teammate. And his teammate is one of the most respected drivers in the sport. So to beat him is a big accomplishment. He's already guaranteed to be out of contract, and obviously that is Carlos Sainz. I'm saying Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz as teammates at Red Bull. I think it'd be genius by Red Bull to get Carlos Sainz in, to be completely honest. I think that's a terrifying partnership. And obviously the car will be built around Max. Max will be the one who's supposed to be the champion in that team. I do believe Carlos will be a lot more competitive towards Max than Checo was, and they have been much closer teammates. And from the perspective of Carlos Sainz, to have Hamilton take your seat and then go to a better car than what Ferrari have with Hamilton and Leclerc is definitely the ultimate revenge from Carlos Sainz. So I think he deserves that move, and I think Red Bull will pick him. Moving on, I hope I haven't missed a team. I'm almost 100% sure I haven't. Moving on to the final team now with Mercedes. And we've burnt out all of the current Formula 1 drivers except Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, Logan Sargent, and Kevin Magnussen, who I think will all be leaving the sport. This brings me down to 3 possibilities for Mercedes. However, the first of those 3, being Sebastian Vettel, I'm going to rule out because I don't think Vettel is going to return to Formula 1, unless it's Audi in 2026. The reason I think that Audi move is possible is because they're a German team. Obviously, Mercedes are as well. Doesn't make much sense, but a new German team entering the sport, I think it would make sense. I think Mercedes are going to look for a younger driver. Ultimately, for Vettel, I think he might take the Audi move in 2026 in the place of Zhou. As I said, Porsche is going to be long-term at stake. I don't think Zhou would be. I don't think Bottas would be if they pick him to stay. So I think Zhou will be there for another year and then probably replaced by Sebastian Vettel. Anyway, that brings us down to 2 more driver options for Mercedes in my eyes, being Mick Schumacher, the Mercedes reserve, and Mercedes Junior Kimi Antonelli. I think Mick is going to struggle to make an F1 return, personally. I do think he's going to struggle. And, yeah, a top drive in Mercedes would be very difficult for a reserve driver to take. I mean, he failed at Haas. To then get the Mercedes seat would be crazy, to be completely honest. I think his best possibility of a seat would be Williams, something like that. I don't think he's going to get the Mercedes seat. Especially since Mercedes should be trying everything to not miss out on their young junior, Kimi Antonelli, 17 years old. And he probably deserves a top drive in 2025, to be completely honest, because he's, based on his junior performances, incredible. He's won pretty much everything he's raced in. He's obviously not raced in F2 yet. So it will be interesting to see what he does in that. But ultimately, he's been very good in everything he's raced in so far. So we shall see. Anyhow, that is going to wrap up this video. But tune in soon for my Saudi Grand Prix predictions. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.